everyone, and welcome back to the channel. And for today's episode of Black Bag Comics, we are looking at X Factor number 125, released August of '96, right in the middle of the whole Onslaught crossover event that was happening in X-Men Comics. This is a double-sized 125th anniversary spectacular. Although we're probably not gonna go over all of the whole thing, right? This issue cost $2.95. Well, not bad compared to the previous issue that we looked at, the Riptide number 1, that was $2.50. So for a double-sized issue, just for an extra 50 cents, not bad. Ooh, Independence Day. Who remembers this movie? Alright, so we are starting off with this shot of Onslaught holding up. This is Dark Beast, if I'm not mistaken. No shot of the credits here, so probably in the next page. So again, these Black Bag comics don't really represent any, I'm not saying that these comics suck or anything. They're just, comics that I bought, just because I was buying everything that was coming out. So a lot of these issues don't really, it doesn't really mean that because I have them in the Black Bag that they're bad or anything. They're just, just random comics that I bought along the way. So it doesn't mean that they're all gonna be horrible. Some of them may be horrible, but this doesn't look to be horrible. Probably did read this issue when it came out, because again it was part of the whole Onslaught storyline. But I don't really remember what's going on, so let's see. So again, it's a cool shot here, cool opening shot, dramatic close-up. And we have this character over here, which I don't know who it is, jumping down on Onslaught. Really cool shot. Great anatomy on the figure. All around, the artwork itself looks pretty crisp. I don't remember who drew it. There's no credits here on the cover. And then we have Havoc in his mid-90s costume. Bursting with energy. And then finally we get some credits here on this page. The Ticking Clock, Howard Mackie, Jeff Matsuda, Al Milgrom, story and art. So we've got Matsuda on art and Milgrom on inks. So Matsuda, if I'm not mistaken, also came from Extreme Studios. But this doesn't look like the typical, much like the Riptide, the previous issue that we saw in the previous episode. Doesn't look like the typical Extremes type of artwork. So this looks heavily influenced by again, different art styles that were coming into mainstream American comics. A lot of the manga influence was starting to creep in. This is a great drawing. This is a great looking Mystique. So we got the sequence going on here of Sabretooth and Mystique. Uh, if I'm not mistaken, it was always implied that there was like a, well, around this time it was implied that there was a relationship between them, and that Mystique had one of Creed's children or something like that. Something was going on uh, back in the day, something that they were trying to tell. The Frighteners. Who knows? Whoever saw this movie directed by Peter Jackson, raise your hand. And we've got this sequence going on here. Good, decent, basic one perspective. First perspective. First point. 1 point. I can't even talk. 1 point perspective. Then we got an over shoulder shot. A little funky anatomy going on here, but not bad, But Mystique has no ass, just flat. And we've got this sequence going on here, pretty action packed, pretty cool actually. It's not, you can see them jumping. There's some cool 3-point perspective shot going on here. So this sequence looks pretty good. And you got Forge, you got Polaris, short hair, little weird proportions going on here on her face. Again, down here, the coloring doesn't do her any good here. There's like a shadow line going from the bridge of her nose down, or her nostril, down into her cheek, and just implies something. Just looks weird, almost like the first thing that came to my mind is the Cowardly Lion from Wizard of Oz. And then we've got this sequence going on here. Establishing shot. Ground worm's eye shot. Another worm's eye shot. This is a great pose. Bird's eye view. So Matsuda is doing a good job of moving the camera around. He's never keeping static with his shots. Again, even though, like explaining the previous episode with looking at the riptide, even though they're not doing much in this panel, they're pretty much just standing. One of the effective ways to add like a drama or movement or excitement to a panel is just like either tilt the camera angle. Here he went really low, and even though it's a pretty straight on shot, the low angle perspective adds a little something to the panel. And then we got this cool big panel shot, open panel shot of Havoc with this characters who I still don't know who it is. And Polaris looks upset, sad. Probably overuse of speed lines here, because there's, even though like I said in the previous episode about did I mention the speed lines thing, that part where Riptide threw like a book and a magic 8-ball, you want to add excitement to a panel, add speed lines, but in this case I don't find a use for the speed lines at all. All he is doing is putting his hand on her shoulder. There's no action going on or anything. Probably would have worked better, implied, even though this is how Havoc's powers work. But again, if you added this on top of the speed lines, probably would have looked cool. And promo for buying comics through mail. And basic shot, storytelling, open panels, overlapping into the next panel. Again, this is effective because it's leading you into the final panel. You know, it's leading, your eye is being led, and this, like this, and then this overlaid panel is going to lead into this, which then leads into this, and finally, as you're reading, it's going to lead you down to the final panel. And then with Polaris looking down to her right, it's going to lead you into the next panel. And then we've got this cool 3-point perspective shot. Somebody climbing, I guess it's Forge, right? Looking down into a Sentinel installation here. This is a really cool drawing. Again, adding speed lines to an invisible, or not invisible, but you know, a dropped out background. You know, you're trying to imply spatial, or you know, spatial recognition. You know, these people are in this place, standing in this position, in this, right? So here, unless you remember where they were standing from, like, that's why I was flipping back, because I'm trying to see where they were, where they are. They jumped into like a back alley or something. So it's a few pages back, so it would have worked if, you know, all of this debris doesn't really tell you where they are. So, you know, maybe if Matsuda had drawn more information in the background to remind you where they are, then this panel would have worked better. But already you're starting off with a blank blue space, and then you add these perspective lines. You know, it just doesn't work. And again, what's the point of adding these lines, you know, if it's just yelling, yo, and I gave you my word, killing, blah, 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 blah. So then you have this sequence here. What's this guy's name? I'm trying to remember. He kicked Juggernaut's ass in one issue. He's like, what, the Herald of Onslaught? But I'm Post. My name, there it is. My name is Post, faithful servant of Onslaught. Did we ever find out who he was? That's the question I'm gonna ask in this. Who was Post? Because Onslaught was a creation of the mind of Xavier and Magneto being joined after he wiped out Magneto's memory. But Post, who's Post? Where did he come from? Does anybody know? And then, is that Sabretooth? Or Wild Child? I guess it's Wild Child because he's not as big as Sabretooth, but we were then, you know, we had Sabretooth in a previous issue speaking with Mystique. But I think Sabretooth was still trapped in the, or not trapped, but he's being held captive in the Xavier Institute. I don't know, at the X-Mansion. And then, who's this? Is this Morph? Who the hell is this? Nope, I don't remember. But it's a cool shot, it's a cool drawing. It leads you all the way into each panel, right? And then it flows to the next page. And then more fighting. Good close-up shot here. Good use of foreground, middle ground, and background. Using depth in your panels. Another dramatic standoff shot using a low angle. I think you've seen that type of shot used often. Here we see it again. Well, this is a little further back, so it doesn't look back low. But again, it's like one of the preferred shots from I'm seeing here by Matsuda. And I guess this is the end of one part of the issue, and then we jump into this second half, which is drawn by somebody else, Stefano Raphael, with inks by Milgram. So here we see Sabretooth and Mystique, and you can see the shift in art style. This is more typical of the 90s style of art, right? With all of the cross hatching and tight line work. Although this does not look good. This doesn't look good. That face. This looks, however, by comparison, looks great. So this is an awesome shot. You got Mystique hanging by one hand and Sabretooth hanging by, holding on to her, to Mystique by a leg. Trying to see if this looks close to this. Not slight, I mean, it's not a reuse, straight up reuse, but again, it's too close. Decent shot here. There's a pretty cool shot. You got Dark Beast here in the shadows reaching out. Again, this is pretty cool use of storytelling, because again, even though you see the big hand reaching out on the left hand side of the panel, you're reading from left to right, and as you read the dialogue, it ends with the beast face covered in shadow, which will then lead you to the reveal on the next page. So while the hand reaching out, it might be a little distracting, it's actually doing its job, because it's leading you from this to this, and then going from this and the big gun down to the big hand, down to the forearm as you read the dialogue, which ends on the face, and then you go into the next page. And now Mystique has an ass. So this is sort of the typical, again, 90s style of storytelling. You got not just a big splash page, but you're adding additional panels to the splash page. So you're using the artist is using the pages, his space, to tell more of the story, instead of just, you know, instead of trying to, maybe, I don't know how the writer scripted this sequence. If he thought, you know, if the artist said maybe it works better as a 2-pager, instead of maybe dividing this panel and then this art over here, he decided to incorporate it into a large spread. This looks different than this, from the way he was drawing beasts in previous pages. So this looks a little more, even like more humanoid, and less, you know, and less beast-like. You know, his features, his facial features look more like a basic human face. Here's a cool drawing. Again, using, you know, background middle ground and foreground to your advantage to use spatial recognition as far as the composition for the panel. Then we have Sabertooth and Dark Beast battling it out. Again, another use of a two-page spread, but with additional panels. Then you got here a big shot of the money shot of Mystique morphing into some sort of thing. What is Mystique? Dear woman, it appears that there are still one or two surprises left in you. So I guess Mystique can grow thorns. Kind of like when Iceman all of a sudden could transform into like a Hulk, but made out of ice. A lot of new concepts were being thrown out during this era of the X-Men. You know, like a second mutation type of thing going on for the characters. This face again looks a little weird, like it's maybe, see, I don't know if the artist didn't finish the pages in time and the inker went in and added his own flair to these, because they all look different. There's not a consistent look throughout. The only consistency is the inconsistency. This kind of looks a little like Bart Sears. It reminds me a little of Bart Sears. It's a cool shot. Typical 90s leaping at you. I'm about to rip out your throat style shot. And then we end with a Dark Beast on a large screen. Frank McCoy will be long dead. And the letters page, Onslaught is here, and Jim Lee joins the Fantastic Four. Even Jim Lee changed the style a little bit when he drew the Heroes Reborn stuff. Rob didn't change. Rob stayed like Rob. Good for him, I guess. Yippee-ki-yay, Die Hard. I had this game on PlayStation 1. Pretty cool. And Kingpin. Alright, so there you go. X Factor number 125. I think I enjoyed the first half more than the second half, even though the art style by Matsuda here is not my favorite. When I saw the first pages here of this sequence here for the second half of the issue, I thought this might look a little cool or cooler, more appealing to me, again given this shot as well. But as the story went on, the artwork started to have some inconsistencies. So it's like the artist either didn't finish his assignment on time and they had some fill-in guys going in there. But all in all, again, again, I'm not saying all of these comics are bad, but this Onslaught looks pretty awesome. This opening shot, Matsuda draws an awesome Onslaught. But yeah, like I was saying, not just because not all comics in the 90s were bad, they get a bad rap, but some of them do deserve it. This issue's like middle of the road because Matsuda's an accomplished artist. by this time as he's doing here. So he's more consistent with his artwork throughout. So visually it's more it's definitely more consistent throughout, so that's a plus. So you're not thrown off by an odd panel here or there, like on the second half, with the different type of faces that we saw with Beast, going from something like this to something like this, right? So this looks more like it's referenced from a picture than someone's head. So there you go. X Factor number 125. Yeah, it's a nice retrospective look. 90s X-Men comic. And I hope you enjoyed it. And I'll see you on the next one.